Hey everybody, Matt Colville here. You might remember that we did this Kickstarter, right? And that the critical component of the Kickstarter was minis. I was super excited by the idea of producing our own minis, and I knew concept artists and I knew 3D modelers, but what I didn't know was I didn't know anybody that actually could make minis. And thank God that we met Dave Baker from Trenchworx. Dave and his company are up in Utah, and he has flown down here and brought all his gear and equipment and everything because we want to show you the actual process of going from concept art to a finished miniature. Which, I don't know, are there videos for this online? Is there anywhere online you can go and see the actual behind the scenes making of a dragon? I don't know, but this is going to be our first attempt. And also, welcome to our maker stage. This is a whole stage we have assembled so that we can do stuff like this, so that we can do, we have friends that are prop modelers and friends that are cosplay artists, and we want to show off their work. And it's just a huge privilege for us to have Dave down here to walk us through the process of making dragons. So how many dragons did we end up needing to make altogether?
I think you ended up with about 15,700 dragons.
15,000 dragons.
Quite a bit. When we started, you had asked for about 10,000 dragons.
Yeah.
And as the final weeks of the Kickstarter grew, it was
quite a bit. We thought 10,000 was unlikely, but we figured that was what's the most people could order, and so 15,000, and now each dragon comes in many different parts. Like with the exception of the Topaz Wormling, all of them have some kind of assembly. So how many total parts are there?
Yeah, so your Amethyst, he has about 11 parts. Your Wormling, well, he's one part.
Right.
The Sapphire, there's 9 parts, plus all of the different pieces of metal. The Emerald's got 6 parts. So all in all, there's about 75,000 parts that we had to touch to make a kit. A final kit is a nice little box.
Yeah.
This is a simple one. He's only got 1 part.
Yeah, sure.
And then the others over there, they have all of the different parts assembled.
75,000 parts, and each part predicates some amount of assembly and cleaning and packaging. Yeah. And right now, there's a big chunk of these are already in a warehouse at our fulfillment company. And so what we're going to do right now is I'm going to introduce you to a friend of ours that worked with us. His name's Jason. And you may know him as the artist that did all the Inexorables that I was really happy with. And also, he did all of the 3D models for the dragons. And he's been a good friend of ours for a long time, fellow ex-Turtle Rock alumni. And so let's bring Jason on, and he can walk you folks through the process of going from concept art to a master. Jason, welcome aboard.
Hi, Matt.
How long have we known each other?
A few years.
Like 8 or 9 years,
yeah,
I think. Coming up 2011 is when we met. And you were a big part of, you were kind of half the art direction team for the book. So if you like the art in the book, a big part of that was the help Jason was giving us. Just because we're not artists, Jason is. So when we needed to communicate with the artists, Jason was usually our point of contact. And our friend Anthony Sixto did all of the concept art for the dragons.
Yeah.
So he is the one who kind of invented the visual style. Anthony Sixto invented the visual style of these gemstone dragons based on my, vague descriptions. And what happens after the concept art stage?
Basically, I got to turn it into a 3D model.
What software do you use?
So, primarily for the dragons, I primarily use ZBrush.
Okay.
Sometimes I use some other software, mostly just for measurements and so on. It doesn't have to be anything in particular, but it's all sculpted in ZBrush, and that's kind of interpreting a 2D illustration into a 3D model. So
that's actually a huge part of the job is the discipline and the artistry of knowing what does the back of this thing look like. Like
I always joke with other 3D artists that you design a lot of backs in this industry because you get a picture of the front of a dragon or the side, and you don't know what the back looks like. Sometimes you get concept art for the backside of stuff, but often you don't. So
stuff like how thick are these wings? If you don't have a turnaround, if you don't have like what they call a paper doll, right, where you're showing the front and the back and the sides, you have to sometimes do a lot of interpolation to get the dimensions of the thing in 3D.
Yeah, that's right.
How long does it take to make like one dragon model? How long does it take to do that?
Usually a couple days or a couple evenings rather, sculpting these dragons. Say 3 to 4 days or so.
Right.
But we have this whole series of gemstone dragons. So I did some preemptive work on these. I designed a bunch of gemstone assets, 3D submodels, small models that I could insert all over these dragons as need be, different crystals and things like that. That kind of help the process and keep it consistent across the dragons, which
That makes sense.
which was a lot of fun.
Is there one dragon amongst these that was like, this is the hard one? We don't have the ruby here. Yeah, we do. Oh, yeah, we have.
The
In fact,
ruby.
this is one of the earliest things we did.
Yeah, he was the first one.
Yeah.
The first one we did, and I tried to stay real close to the concept art. He has a very distinct pose there.
Right.
A lot of protruding parts and so on that we had to worry about through the production process. Maybe Dave can talk about if he wants later. But
Does the physical size of the final product have any correlation to how hard it is to model?
Only in the sense that you have an idea of how big these things are going to be, so the level of detail, how you're actually going to see it. You can.
Right.
You don't have to put as much detail into something that's this big as
Sure.
something that's this big. You just want
Right.
those the scale of detail to be the same.
Does the number of limbs impact this stuff? Because I mean, obviously, this is basically one piece, right? He's got a relatively small number of limbs. He's got one tail, but then you've got this guy that's got 4 legs and a tail and 2 tentacles.
Yeah.
Does that have a
A
big
lot.
impact on
Yeah,
the?
it needs more work.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. So when you're done, so the 3D modeling process, does it respect at all the printing process? When they are going to actually start making models, do you already have in your head where are we going to slice this thing up, or is that something they worry about later?
Actually, guys at Trenchworx, Paul did an amazing job. I was super impressed with all the cuts. Paul saved me a lot of effort. I had maybe an inkling of an idea where I wanted stuff cut on these, but Paul is a true artist when it came to figuring out where these parts were going to separate and go together, and I'm still super impressed with them all.
Is it a back and forth between you and Paul? Is it like he sees your work and then he has some ideas and then you go back and do you change the pose or anything like that to make it?
We did go through a few iterations on some of these guys. I think I love miniatures. I love creatures. I've been messing with models and miniatures my entire life. So I went into these with some indication of certain scales or ideas behind how something might be cast. I'm not saying they were perfect. We certainly had to make changes, but it was I don't know. Paul actually did some magic on some of these that I was impressed with. I thought we were going to have to change stuff in cases that we didn't. So
you thought you were going to have to repose things in order to make it possible to slice them up. So you start with the concept art.
Yeah.
You model it in 3D, right? Which is a lot of you figuring out what the thing looks like from every dimension.
Mm-hmm.
And then we deliver the 3D model to Trenchworx, and there's an artist/engineer at Trenchworx who works with you to figure out how do we pose this thing in order to make it possible to cut into different pieces, because this isn't going to come out of the mold as one solid piece.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And like a couple examples would be shifting how we have certain claws flowing or the direction of stuff, how planar the wings are, and so on.
Interesting.
And that's all whether or not we want to keep it in one piece.
Right.
Ruby Dragon has a one-piece wing that includes part of its back.
Right.
Whereas the Emerald got 2 different wings because the planes that they're on is separate. My first goal was to try to match the concept art as close as possible in the sculpts, with the expectation of possibly having to change stuff later. But again, the guys at Trenchworx were able to kind of let us stick really close to that original artwork.
That's great. That's the benefit of having really good partners, is that they get it. So we just went over the process of going from concept art to the 3D model, which then Jason hands off to you folks.
Yep.
And what's the next step there? What happens next?
Okay, so what we do is we take Jason's model, and first we look at it and we think, okay, can we build this?
Sure, yeah.
And if we can, we call you back and say, yes, we'll build it.
Yes.
And then we take the original model that he gave us and we print a rough copy on our engineering printer.
Which is a 3D printer, but like a really expensive
Yeah,
one.
we have 8 3D printers, and we use different ones for different things.
Right.
And this one, some of them are FDM, which are really good for big stuff, but this one's an object from Stratasys, and we print the entire dragon to see what it looks like.
Right.
And at that point, we really can see, like, oh, there's a hook right here that we have to plan for. There's things coming out of his face here that we have to plan for. He's got a tail that circles all the way around him, and that's never going to mold, or if it does mold, we're going to have to destroy the mold after a few times.
Right.
So then we build it and we call Jason and say, okay, we need to tweak this or turn this way so that it'll work and the resin will flow properly. Next up, we actually go through and we mark where we want to put all the parting lines.
Right. You can see there's like a literal marker. You've gone over it and just marked like, we're going to cut it here. We're going to turn it into these parts.
So number 1 is the body.
Oh, they're numbered.
Number 2
Look
is
at
the
that.
head. Number 3 is your left wing, right wing?
Yeah, left wing.
Left wing. And then 4 is your right wing, 5 is your leg, and then the tail is going to be number 6 or 9.
That's awesome. If you're upside down.
And so then we give these to Paul, and Paul, he goes through the model, and he parts out all the details. And I'm going to jump a step here. He'll part out all the different pieces into the wings, and what he'll do is he'll add a key and a cavity.
Sure. Yeah.
So we have a receiving cavity for this key, so that when the modeler, you want to have the most fun building your models. You don't want to be sitting here with pulling your hair out for 3 hours. We really try to design things so they go together within a few minutes.
Right. So that you can, so that normal people can assemble.
So that normal people can assemble them. So these things should receive each other. These prints are actually a little bit oversized because the resin shrinks in the mold. So when you get the resins, they just come together.
So this is a master, and so it actually won't fit together because the expectation is that when you make a mold out of it, the resin shrinks a little.
It shrinks a little bit. Now this is the master. Before we get to this stage, we actually take this model. Paul's modified it so that we can see all the different parts.
Right.
We print these as pieces. I didn't bring that one today.
Got it.
But when we get that one, we can slide everything together. We make sure we're happy with it. We make sure that we can look at it and we can pour resin into the part so it can be molded. And after that, I think we sometimes send you either pictures or videos of how everything goes together. We get your approval. At that point, we print the fine scale models that have all the detail, the surface textures proper. These are the pieces that are the masters that we're going to build your master dragon model from.
Right. Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
So once we get past that step, and these are dental printers. So these are the same machines that print crowns.
Nice. And
so if you rub your tooth, it's got to be very smooth. So that's how we get our surface texture.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
Once we go from there, we build a master mold, and we build this blue resin. We use this to help us keep track of everything in the shop.
You've literally dyed it blue on purpose, so that you can tell what step in the process you're at.
Right. So with 75,000 pieces floating around, you can get things mixed up.
It's just cool that I look at that and I assume that this must be a different kind of plastic. And no, we dyed it blue, so we know this is the next step.
This is the next step in the process. So we don't want to go and accidentally grab one that was cast a few generations later.
Right.
So we'll make a master, and we take these masters, and then we replicate them, and we make production molds off of those replicants. And eventually we get a production quality model that is then boxed and sent to your customer.
That's amazing. So these are the molds, correct?
These are molds for a Sapphire Dragon, which is right here, this fella.
So these 3 molds make, there's 9 parts at 1, 2, 3,
these 3
4,
molds
5, 6,
plus this one right here. That's the tail.
That's the tail. All of this to make one dragon.
To make one dragon.
Right. Now it's the biggest one, but it's still And these are silicone molds, correct?
They're silicone molds.
They are very squishy and pliant. And is this what kind of plastic? What kind of silicone?
It's a silicone. It's a silicone. We use lots of different silicones in the shop. These are actually master molds. Our production molds are bigger. We inject resin into it. We have a whole different process than what we see here today.
Awesome.
But I grabbed some old molds that we had when we built the first Sapphires, and I brought them down so that we could show, how we go about building something.
Should we cast a dragon?
Yeah, I think we're ready to cast a dragon unless you'd like to see something else.
I mean, I'm super excited to watch this process and see an actual dragon get birthed in front of us. Okay. We have donned our safety glasses so that now if anything explodes in front of us, there's definitely a very slim chance we'll survive. This now looks like an awesome, crazy chemistry set. This is the resin, correct?
Yeah, it's a part A and a part B. We don't have our setup like we have in our shop.
Sure,
so I got a pressure pot. I've got our molds. I'm going to mix them in the cups. We inject the resin. We also we mix it through a static mixer. So all that stuff is very different than what we have here. But we can make it work, and we can make an awesome model come out of it.
And people actually do at a much smaller scale. People actually do this stuff at home. There are kits you
Oh
can
yeah,
get.
there's a whole industry out there for garage resin kits. People
Right.
build, giant vampires and
Nice.
1976 King Kongs.
And is the
all sorts of
process
crazy
basically
stuff.
the same of just
It's
mixing
basically the
the
same.
stuff and pouring it into the mold?
Yeah, there's a lot of talented people. They build these amazing molds. They build these amazing models. And we're going to try to do the same thing here in your workshop.
Well, let's go for it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So what we're going to do, we're going to take the all of these molds,
Mhm.
and we're going to build a Sapphire Dragon. So this is the body mold. These are leg molds. These are tentacle molds.
Got it.
And then over here, I have a tail mold. But
Got it.
unfortunately, all of these won't fit in the pot at the same time.
Got it.
So I'm going to sit this fellow over to the side here, and I'll show you what the body mold looks like. On the inside,
Yeah.
you basically have a negative.
Yeah. And if you
these-
know this model, you can see the patterning in there.
Yep, you can
recognize
see it in
yeah.
there. Yep, yep. This is a master mold. This is one that we make in the very beginning of the process. Normally, our production molds are much more larger. They have larger cavitation. We use larger pots, and we don't really have our setup in the shop here. So we're kind of doing a very rudimentary.
When you say larger pots, you mean literally larger?
Yeah, they're
than
bigger.
those.
They're
Yeah.
taller. We've got hangers that pump resin into things. And,
Awesome.
It's entirely a work cell, so
Right.
that we can go very quickly through the process and be efficient. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to band these guys up with some rubber bands.
Just straight up rubber bands.
Yep, straight up
hold
rubber
it
bands.
together.
It's going to pull this guy together.
And these are just silicone molds.
These are silicone molds. Yep, it takes a few days to make these. We actually print the master, which we talked about earlier,
Right.
and the model is then set up, and we pour a silicone over that model, and it makes the positive inside here. Again, this is a negative that we're going to see.
Yeah.
I've got 4 cavities here. This is the legs, front right, front left, back right, back left. RRL, that's our code inside
I love
the
that
shop.
you can look at those holes and you know exactly which one's which.
I
Yeah,
know,
because you've
yeah.
done this a million times.
This is one of the tentacles. This is the left tentacle. This is the right tentacle.
Right.
I guess this dragon has tentacles instead of wings.
Yeah.
Some of the others have wings.
Some have wings, yeah. Some have like atrophied wings.
The
yeah.
tail itself, again, I'll show that mold while we're doing it.
This
This
is
is
the tail
this
mold.
larger mold right here. And it has a pour point, that spot right there. And then the metal, we have the metal that we contract that out to another company who does
Right.
that for us, Fortress Figures. They do a good job on that.
Yeah, they look great. And the metal gets us. Gets us more detail? What's the?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so the problem with resin is it's very brittle. So when you have a really thin, very long feature like
I see. I get
this,
it.
that would never have. It will survive,
Right.
but we're playing games, so people like
Yeah,
to
sure.
move their models
Yep,
around.
absolutely,
And somebody's
yeah.
inevitably going to hit the thing. It's going to break, and then you're disappointed because you spent 3 days painting that guy.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mix our part A and part B of the resin,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to pour them into the cavity.
Yep.
I'm going to put them into our pressure pot, which you can just get one of these for our purposes here.
Yeah.
We're going to pressurize it for about 20-25 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back later and we'll open this up and we'll birth a dragon.
Holy
on
crap.
TV. So
That's amazing.
Should be pretty awesome. So when let's see, make sure I got everything here.
Yeah.
When I do this, you're going to hit the timer.
You start mixing.
I have 3 minutes to get this in here, or we'll start getting bubbles and all sorts of
Yeah.
other
So
stuff.
this is
happening.
19. That's.
Yeah, when it's 19. So when it's about 19:30, you need to tell me, hey, you're at
Got it, you got about
19:30,
30 seconds.
so watch that.
Fair enough.
And then let's see if there's anything else I need to say. Have you answered all your questions? Because I'm
Well,
not going to
yeah.
talk to you for the next 3 minutes.
No, that's true. I mean, if we do this again, I'll probably have more questions. Like,
Okay.
there's stuff about like how the molds work and stuff that I'm interested in.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, good.
But once you start,
Okay,
Let
so
me know.
let's see. We're going to take this guy. We're going to mix it in here. Go ahead.
okay, start.
And we have equipment that mixes all of this stuff in our shop. But again, we're in down here in California, so we don't have everything at our
You
advantage.
brought a little strike team of dragon making stuff.
Yep, I brought all of it in a box. Actually, one of your shipper boxes for all of your other dragons.
Oh, nice.
So what we're going to do is we're going to pour this guy in here. We've got some vents on here, so I should be able to pour a pretty good amount.
So as you're pouring, the air that's in there is escaping through
There
the
it's
vents.
escaping, yep. And we're going to pressurize it here in a bit, and that'll fill in all of the details. Again, these molds are not necessarily designed for quick production,
Right.
but they do work, and they'll serve their purpose today for us. And the resin, as it starts to cure, it's already heating up a little bit, so I can feel it.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, because there's a chemical reaction happening.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I think if you were used to making minis with cyanoacrylic glue, you can get accelerant. And it's, I think, the accelerant just makes it so the glue hardens instantly. But it creates a lot of heat in the process. And that's, I think, analogous to what's happening here.
And here, that one filled up just nicely. Okay. Next thing we'll do, we'll just kind of, every so often we burp the molds a little bit and make sure all the resin gets out of it. Yeah, right. They've just eaten, so they consumed a nice big sandwich. I'm going to put that guy in there. Where am I at?
You got a minute and 16 seconds.
I'm doing really good here. Let's see. So I've got these guys stacked in. I guess we can really get a picture of this fella. And let's see that. Okay. Next up. We're going to go in here, get this guy on.
You got about 20 seconds.
20 seconds. Let's see here. Put that guy over here.
7.
Yeah, we're okay. Do a little bit. 10 seconds over, and then we just pressurize it. And let's see, where's my, there he is. And we'll come back in about 20 minutes, and it should be ready.
And we'll have a so this dragon egg will birth its dragons.
That's right.
In about 20 minutes.
We're going to make a Sapphire Dragon. So.
That's amazing.
And hopefully we have good shots. No short shots, no bubbles, good surface texture if all goes well.
This is the leftover resin, which is already hard, and it was really hot before. Now it's merely very warm.
All right, so
look at that, cool. I recognize the color of the resin.
Looks the same. So what we're going to do, let's see what's more awesome to see. Probably this one. We'll just pop this guy open.
This is the main body.
I should probably wear some gloves here.
Can't hurt.
Well, it's got to do a little bit of outgassing, so it's helpful to not get this on your hands.
Wow! Wow!
Oh yeah, there we go.
Look at that! Wow, there's a ton of flash on there. Look at it; just comes right off.
It comes right off. And,
that's amazing.
We can peel that off. I wonder. Yep, I'll just twist this one.
Holy crap!
And then what we do is we'll go back and.
There's no odor, which is surprising me. I don't smell anything.
Yep. And we actually have to clean this just a little bit.
I get it.
So that the tail will assemble into.
And is it still kind of pliable right now? Is it still?
I can move it a little bit.
Right.
This is a nice solid chunk, but you can look at the detail on there. I mean, we got the face.
It's amazing.
That's
amazing.
That was a nice pour.
I mean, I knew what was going to happen. It's warm to the touch, but it's crazy good detail, and this was goop like 20 minutes ago,
right?
And now it is a solid piece of mini that we could glue together.
Yeah. So we'll take this guy, pull these out.
Wow, man, you have a good job.
Yeah.
Like
all
that's
day, every
amazing.
Day. All day, every day.
You're literally creating these things.
I think
out
Paul
of nothing.
says we build fun. So
yeah.
Let's see here. Pop this guy out. So these are pretty clean. The molds are empty. We take this fella. This one, I got one little bubble there just because the setup here is not as like our shop. This one ended up doing well. I'll pop that off. We'll take this fellow. Clip those off. I got one little bubble right there.
Wow. See, I don't even think I would have noticed that.
Well, most people won't. This stuff on the bottom would be covered with sand on your final model.
Sure, yeah.
So we snip those guys off. Put this bruise to the side. And let's see here.
Wow.
So that goes together there.
Yeah, and there's hardly any seam line at all.
Yeah. Actually, you know what I'll do? I'll do this. Well, I So what
I'm
gonna
helping.
do- Yeah, you did a good job.
I'm staying out of your way.
So I'm just gonna put these guys on here. These guys on here. These guys on here. These guys on here. These guys on. And another thing that we can do is these guys on here. So put that guy together. And then the shirt's getting pulled off here. There we go. So what that'll do, that'll keep him nice and tight. And there's no seams. I mean, that's perfect.
I can't see anything. That's crazy. Well, if I know where to look, maybe a little bit, but like any primer will just cover that right up.
Oh yeah, you're not gonna see anything from the primer. So put that guy right there.
I have some accelerant.
Actually, this stuff will
Cure fast enough.
it'll cure fast enough. We should be okay. This one, you know what? I didn't clean him as good as I should have.
So there's still some flashing.
Yeah, still a little flash on there.
Wow.
And then we have the tail on this side. So we could just, it's not clean.
Whoa!
Watch out. It's
That was cool.
I should have been wearing my safety glasses. I was thinking it was soft. When it's soft, it's...
That was neat.
Yeah, so and then we put this guy right here. And basically you got the same...
Man,
where'd the fella go?
Few things.
He's got a big brother.
Look at that.
I don't know about that.
Look at that. I mean, they look pretty much identical.
It works.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
You never know when you're building stuff if everything's going to work the way you think it should.
Well, I mean, this is a pretty amazing experience for me as somebody who has been buying minis their entire life, getting to see the actual process, which I knew nothing about when we started. And then you coming down here and bringing all your equipment and everything and getting to show us and getting to show our viewers how this stuff works. And I hope that people who don't know anything about us, when they're just looking, how does this stuff work? How do people make minis? Get to see this process and discover it for themselves, because there's a ton of artistry, but also technology and engineering and chemistry that goes into it, and it's breathtaking, frankly.
It takes a lot of people to put it together, and we have a really talented group of artists and model builders and some engineers that get tossed into the mix, and all the guys that cast it. And it takes every single person to do a good job the right way to make something really cool like this.
How many people work at Trenchworx?
There's about 13 of us.
And where in Utah are you guys?
Sandy, Utah.
Which we've been to, which was awesome. That was a great trip. We'll be up there again. And so this is fantastic, Dave. Thanks for coming down, and we look forward to working with you next Kickstarter.
Oh,
just
can't wait.
We'll be doing more minis, more stuff, probably more dragons, more stuff from Strongholds and Followers as minis, more new stuff, and it's going to be super exciting. So I hope you guys had a great time. Thanks for watching. We're going to do another series of videos, you'll see after this one, that is assembling each dragon, so that when you get your dragons, you can watch a 2, 3, 5 minute long video of Dave, the guy who made them, showing you actually how to assemble them. Until then, peace out.